Wait, there's some.
What's wrong?
There's a delay on mine.
Yeah, on mine also for some reason. But that's okay. I mean, as long as we know about it, just don't move much.
I see there's a delay on the picture from my end.
Yeah, there is a delay for some reason, but I certainly don't.
Maybe
but everybody's
refresh
on.
mine.
Okay, maybe I'll refresh mine also. And then
Refresh.
Okay, I'm gonna shut it down.
Okay.
I'm gonna do the intro, then I'll get you guys back on. Okay. So I'm gonna shut it down completely. Bye.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going, Ron? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
My volume's okay?
Yeah, you're perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, Mayor is a bit like frozen, but I guess he's refreshing.
Yeah. I don't. Maybe they just have bad internet. It's funny though, because like Doc's in the States, he should have good internet.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sitting in the room where my internet thing is, so I'm as close as I can be to my actual internet connection. So that's why mine doesn't have a problem.
Yeah, mine's. I just finally wired mine in. I'm sitting right beside it. So if I was wireless, it'd be fine.
Yeah, I hear you. How's the herd? How's everything coming along with your project there?
It's slow going, but we're putting in a grant at the end of the month.
We are live. Okay, we are live. I was just told not to forget to go live. So anybody just joining us, all 7 of you all out there so far, this is another episode of Never Again Live podcast with Mayor Levy Weinstein. We have some guests with us this evening. We got a little late to start, but let's get started, and we'll be speaking to you throughout the program. Do get onto our private chat if you have any questions, concerns, or comments. And let's see. Let's find it. We have a video to do our countdown and tell you all who we are. Without any further ado, and away we go. This is Never Again Live podcast series, and we're going to begin momentarily. Okay, we're going to have a little technical problems tonight, but hey, it's the internet. It's not us. I hope you're all going to join us and stick with us in spite of a little technical difficulty. We are the Never Again Live podcast with Mayor Levy Weinstein, and with some guests who will be joining us also this evening. We're tracking very slowly on the internet this evening. Sorry about that. Why that is, I wish I knew. Hey, we're having some problems here, guys. So, our guests this evening are Ron East, Ryan Belrose. For those of you who are watching, we're usually a little more together, but our internet over on my end in South Texas is giving us difficulty. But nonetheless, you'll be able to hear us live, and our videos may be delayed or non-existent this evening. We are talking about BDS, as always, and we're also talking about the organizations that somehow BDS managed to get within their web. Guys, without any further ado, Mayor, I'm going to bring you onto this set after this. Basically, what we're talking about, though, is the fact that these Jewish groups have signed up with the BDS, this Free Palestine, these progressive Jews, the Anti-Defamation League, J Street, Jewish Voice for Peace, Independent Jewish Voices. And I guess they missed a couple of days in Hebrew school when they were youngsters. We know that Rabbi Hillel said many things, and we're going to dedicate this show to some very special people. But before that, Rabbi Hillel did say that if I am not for myself, who will be for me? And those Jewish groups don't appear to be for us. They appear to be for the enemy. They are aiding and abetting the enemy. So we dedicate to show some special friends who visited us at Zadie's Bakery and seemed to really enjoy what we had to offer them. And tonight's Porsche, we're going to just briefly mention, but Mary's going to really talk about a very important issue this evening. In addition to the Parsha, which we talk tribes, travels, and God telling Moses to be the spokesperson to the children of Israel. We're going to talk more specifically about the 9 weeks, which is the mourning for the destruction of the holy temples. In spite of the mourning for destruction, Rabbi Schneerson did say that in spite of this, you need to speak about the need to shine a beacon of light. Even in the darkest times, there's light. Schneerson also said that light is not an entity in of itself. It is that darkness is not an entity in itself. It is merely the absence of light. So due to our technical difficulties here at the studio, Mayor, we're going to bring you on, and we're going to close me down until further notice. And Mayor, it's all you.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. Great to be with you. I'm going to ask everyone if you could please social media platforms that you use. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Share the link. We'll reach a lot more people. We'll have a stronger effect. We've been accomplishing BDS organization. There's a lot more work that we have to do. But before we get into the actual topic, and one of the central things that we're going to be talking about, group IJ, it's a BDS organization. They claim to be Jewish, and they're running bus ads in calling Israel an apartheid state. So we've been taking some action on that. Some other kind of bus ad to highlight the Hamas children training. It's supposed to be summertime, and kids are supposed to be enjoying the summer. So what they're doing, they're training children to be terrorists. To that, I want to talk about right now. This is a period of time called the 9 days. 9 days above. So we had before the 3 week Tisha B'Av. What is Tisha B'Av? Tisha B'Av, we remember the destruction of and the Second Temple, and we thirst and we pray for restoration and the rebuilding of the Third Temple. And where is the temple supposed to be? The temple is supposed to be on the Temple Mount. Now, so this period of time is a period of mourning and reflection of the place, how our people responded back then, and what lessons we could learn from then. And Israel today, there are so many miracles right in front of us that we see, and just don't even grasp it the time that we're in. There's a lot of what seems to be, but if you examine it, really not. So let me give you a point. Israel is emerging as a superpower in the Middle East. In terms of technology, now they're discovered, and Europe wants Israel to supply them with gas because of Ukrainian-Russian war. Now, Israel is exploring gas fields in the Mediterranean that belong to Israel in Israel's territorial waters. Hezbollah is threatening to blow up these. All of a sudden, unexpected, Europe is sending warships to the Mediterranean to assist Israel protecting the gas rigs. In other words, Europe was responsible and suffering because Israel supplied them with gas and technology. Now they're rush line and saying, we want to help you. We want to help as we can. Hezbollah, we want Hezbollah destroyed. We want that gas. That's an incredible thing going today. Think about it. Back to the temple. On Temple Mount, the official policy is not to allow Jews to pray. Think about it. Not to allow Jews to pray on the Temple Mount. Just a few months ago, during Ramadan, rallies on the Temple Mount, waving, howling for the murder of Jews. This takes place. If enough Jews really grasp that as we mourn the destruction of our temple and we want the temple rebuilt, do we speak out against the abomination of the worst form of anti-Semitism taking place on our holiest site where the temple stood? Now, Jews should internalize where they day that Israel is that strong today. We should be speaking in a manner that we want to pray on the Temple Mount. Is that all? We want the temple rebuilt. And that should be in our vocabulary and be the discussions that go on going forward. Give them a platform on the Temple Mount. Let them call for the murder of Jews and let them incite masses. Should be forbidden to be up there. So talk about tonight. Also, one moment. Okay, what to discuss? Let's bring our Ron East and Ryan Belrose.
Before Ron East and Ryan Belrose come on, I just want everybody to know that we're back on. If you lost our signal, please get back on. The internet went down. The internet is back up. And I'm just going to introduce our guests before we bring them on. If anybody down here is new, I know that there's a delay in the sound. There's not much I could do about it. But without any further ado, those of you who are not familiar with our group of people who are with us this evening, first, let's get. So there's Ron East. Ron East is the founding editor of the JCA, which is the leading journal for pro-Israel Jewish news, both local as well as regional and global. And we also have Ryan Belrose going to be with us tonight, who met us from Alberta, who is a self-proclaimed passionate Zionist. And I'm Dr. B here down in the South Texas studios. Again, sorry for our delay, but I think we got things going now. Guys, back to you.
Hey, fellas.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hey. Doc, could you do me a favor? I'm pretty sure that I'm not
Ryan, how are you guys doing?
Zionist. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm not a self-proclaimed Zionist. I think that's kind of... I mean, I think I've kind of earned my Zionist credentials somewhat, at least.
You are a Zionist. Yeah, you are. You're not self-proclaimed. We're proclaiming you.
He's a Zionist through and through.
So...
absolutely.
I
when I say self-proclaimed, when people call us Zionists, some of them don't mean it in a positive fashion. What I'm saying is I'm a proud self-proclaimed Zionist. If you think that's a negative thing, I don't care. You can call me it all day long, however you want. So I mean that as a compliment. All of us are self-proclaimed Zionists. Anyway, back to you guys. Sorry I had to clarify.
That's okay. So the reason I wanted to talk to Mayor today was I'm seeing all these bus ads. And I saw the reply that Mayor got because he's one of the few people that actually took the time to send them an email, basically saying, "What the hell are you doing?" like I'm looking at the reply, and what I'm seeing, this is from me personally. They say that these bus ads don't contravene, because they show factual things. Like, so they say that because certain human rights organizations have claimed that Israel's an apartheid state, since they've done that the bus ads are factual insofar as they show what people have actually said. Well, I'm reasonably certain we can make the case that Hamas is a terrorist organization. I'm reasonably certain we can make the case that because, and these are the same organizations, by the way, that called Israel apartheid. Amnesty International has actually said that there's an issue with Hamas using children. Human Rights Watch, even, it's funny because they're so pro-Israel, right? But I mean, the Human Rights Watch has even come out and said
Right.
that Hamas has built terror tunnels underneath UNRWA schools. So I think that maybe our best reply to this is to get some bus ads going, and be incredibly factual. Don't say anything that's not factual, and then because I'm pretty sure they're going to get more offended by what we say. I mean, everybody knows, like, they try to use this apartheid card, and like it says here. If you read this ad, the state of Israel practices apartheid. Go back to the sign. Practices apartheid. Now look, as say, and then they list. That way they can technically be true. Look, they can make the claim that Israel's apartheid. We could have gotten that ad removed. But because they say Human Rights Watch, B'Tselem, Yesh Din, Amnesty International, Independent Jewish Voices, like these are, and Solidarity with Palestine, St. John's, at least 3 of those are openly anti-Semitic organizations, and I would argue that they're all openly anti-Semitic. I mean, we can prove that they spout anti-Semitic nonsense constantly. Human Rights Watch, I'm pretty certain that nobody that does this stuff in good faith would not admit that Human Rights Watch and Ken Roth are incredibly anti-Semitic. B'Tselem, I mean, B'Tselem itself, they're the ones that laughed and joked about Palestinians being murdered for selling land to Jews. So these are not organizations that are unbiased in any stretch. I mean, IJV is like this nominally Jewish. Like, I know that we're saying we have met the enemy and is us, but the truth is very few people in IJV are actually Jews. Very few people in If Not Now are actually Jews. If Not Now just did a thing on Facebook. It was one of the most hilarious cell phones I've ever seen. They did Havdalah, right? Now, the funny part is they did Havdalah in the middle of the afternoon. Like, Havdalah is supposed to be the end of Shabbat. I'm not even Jewish, and I know that. And all of these supposedly Jewish people celebrated a Havdalah in the middle of the afternoon. And then when a few of us called them out on it, they said, you don't get to gatekeep our Judaism. I'm like, it's not your Judaism, dumbass. It's literally Havdalah is the end of Shabbat, which means it should be dark outside. Like, it's not rocket science, but like, we let these idiots get away with this stuff. And even some of my friends have been telling me, Ryan, like, they're doing this Havdalah stuff.
They thought Havdalah was a 50-cent piece. They were confused.
Yeah.
No, Havdalah.
This is exactly it. Like, it's the same. This is the same group, though, if not now, that showed up to do a big protest on an American university campus on what was the big holiday there? You know what I'm talking about. The one where you say sorry and all that stuff.
Oh, Yom Kippur.
Yeah, Yom Kippur. They showed up on Yom Kippur on a campus, and they couldn't understand why there were no Jews at the Hillel. And they were like, we're here to protest, and they're not even here. And I'm like, that's because it's a Jewish holiday, and they won't be there all day, idiots. And if they were actually Jewish, you'd think they would know that, right? But these are people that they're only Jewish when it's time to complain about Israel or shit on Jews or attack Judaism, because then all of a sudden they're super Jewish, and that way nobody can say you're an anti-Semitic piece of garbage, right? The truth is, these people aren't Jews. They're not even nominally Jewish. These are the kinds of people who are only Jewish when it's time to throw shade at Israel or other Jews. And then all of a sudden, oh, I'm Jewish, so if you say something mean to me, that's Lashon Hara. And it's like, no, it's not, because you're really not very Jewish. Like, and I'm not even Jewish, and I see this stuff. I can't imagine how you guys must feel, because you guys are actually Jews, and they're doing this. Right? It's just insanity.
it's these organizations aren't
It's like
created to try and
now
manipulate.
advocating for Andy Levin, who he's actually not Jewish. His wife is not Jewish. His kids are not Jewish. He says he's Jewish. He says he's a proud Jew, and he's uh, teaming up with Rashida Tlaib to demonize Israel, and if not now, is promoting him. They're saying this is like the Jewish thing, Jews for Andy Levin, that type of thing. Yeah. Work to do, and
this is
contact. I did contact the bus company, the main bus company interested to run our ads to spread the, and absolutely no, it's all got to be documented and actual on the ads. We have the information, we have the people to make the right kind of ad. We have to do this. So I haven't received a response to my email that I sent. It was sent today anyways, but we'll get it. This is anti-Semitism. There's no question about it. Let me just add
these organizations
that we are also sharing of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau taking pictures with the Palestinian Authority representing Canada, and she's on record, active on social media. She calls Israel evil, an apartheid country, war crimes, and everything.
A nuclear power, settler colonialist state, and
right now, United Nations, speaking out against officials at the UN that are openly anti-Semitic. So even the Canadian ambassador to the UN, Bob Ray, record saying that either he dismembered this committee that singles out Israel, or this individual that was exposed for anti-Semitism be replaced, fired, no question about it. We have the Prime Minister of Canada posing for pictures of, under the definition of the IRA definition, she would be considered anti-Semitic, in Canada endorse the use of anti-Semitism, and that's what's going on. These are the issues that are going on. So, we have the bus ads, we have what's going on with the Prime Minister. What's going on? They're just ignoring the anti-Semitism on the top level.
Yeah, smiling selfies. He's got to know who these people are. He's not I know we make fun that he's kind of dumb and he's kind of not really all there, but it's constant now. He's taking selfies with these people consistently. And B'nai B'rith, they had their government relations guy. He took a smiling selfie with a well-known BDSer. People got to pay attention to who you're taking pictures with. You won't find pictures of me shaking hands and smiling with BDSers. There is a picture of me smiling and holding up a SodaStream syrup in front of a bunch of BDSers that were protesting SodaStream. But I'm literally holding up a SodaStream flavor that I liked because I went and bought it and took a picture with those idiots. They didn't realize that I was in there buying SodaStream. So that's a different kind of story.
If I can just interject here, guys. First of all, in regards to this,
you talk about that kind of picture that in the SodaStream. There's another picture of the Palestinian Authority representative to Canada. She probably showed she's promoting Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, Ron was. Ron keeps talking, but I don't hear you, Ron. Something's going on. You talk, and then there's a delay. So sorry, Ron, go ahead. Sorry, you were saying something.
No, there's a delay, so it's okay. I was just trying to get back to those organizations, and we're talking about those so-called Jewish organizations. And one point I wanted to make is that those organizations weren't created to try and persuade the Jewish community that Israel is an apartheid state. Those organizations were created to give the illusion to the greater public that there is some kind of Jewish support for this notion of BDS, apartheid, and therefore when you see something with the word Jewish, because let's be honest, the majority of people are very ignorant about the complexities of the game that's being played here. They see the word Jewish and they assume for that matter that a certain percentage, and therefore a large percentage of Jews are somehow supporting that particular stance. And when in reality, as we've all known, Independent Jewish Voices is made up of a handful of people across the country. In regards to those bus ads, we have contacted the bus company as well through the J.ca. And what we discovered was that Independent Jewish Voices is looking at spreading those ads beyond St. John's. They've been in contact with Montreal, as well as with Winnipeg here in Winnipeg, with the transportation and with the bus companies to see how they can get their ads on buses in these cities. I'm assuming that they're going to continue to try and get those ads on other cities in the country. And I think that's why it's important for us to counter those ads as best we can. Now, I do know that they are going to have to make changes to the way that their ads are currently being displayed on the buses. We don't know yet what those ads, new ads, are going to look like. But they are going to run those ads with some graphical changes, if you want to call it, to those ads. But it's not the first time we've seen Independent Jewish Voices do ads like this. They've run previously in previous years ads either in buses, bus shelters, and other places decrying Israel as an apartheid state. Again, it's the weakness of our Jewish leadership in Canada and the diaspora, whether it's Toronto, Montreal, St. John's, Winnipeg, that are very late to countering these kind of issues. Look at it. We're talking about it. Our Jewish leadership isn't talking about it. You're not hearing any kind of strong wording coming out of the Jewish leadership. And again, we're always caught behind the 8 ball. There's not enough intelligence being gathered by the Jewish community to know that these things are coming up and that we can do something to try and counter these kind of actions. That to me is what's most disturbing about this type of situations. It's not so much the ad itself, it's our lack of ability to be ahead of the game and our lack of ability to quickly respond when we see these kind of actions taking place. As far as the Prime Minister, and then I'll let you guys get back into the conversation, it's a game of demographics. I mean, let's not play a game here. It's a game of demographics. He understands very clearly the demographic game. He understands the shift in the population, and he understands that if he wants to be reelected, and to be reelected, you have to win Ontario. He understands what he needs to do in Ontario. Ontario is having a larger and larger Muslim population, so I don't think the Prime Minister is. No, I agree, but I don't think the Prime Minister is being uneducated when he's taking those pictures. I think he's being very coordinated and very smart, in his own opinion, of the pictures that he's taking and who he's taking them with. He's well aware of who that woman is. He's well aware of what she's saying. But he also understands that taking a picture with her is going to get him a lot more likes and a lot more people from that part, of the population that are going to vote for him. And that's important for him at the end of the day to save his seat. This is not about Israel or Palestine. This is just about saving his own, tuchus and making sure they can be prime minister for a longer period of time. Sad but true. It's happening in Europe. It's happening all over the world. It's a matter of just population.
Did you all get a chance to see that Michael Tepper communicated with the advertising requirements, and they gave him the runaround? They said that they have 20 days to respond after he fills out the proper forms and documents.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, incredible. He's an attorney, and they won't even let him know what we can do, what we can't do if we want to combat this blatant anti-Semitism.
But here we are, Dr. B. It's a private lawyer who's taken on the cause of anti-Semitism. It's Mayor Weinstein who's taken on the cause of anti-Semitism. It's Ron Easton, the J.ca, who've taken the cause of anti-Semitism. It's individual people who've gone on to write and to request and to be outraged. I'm not hearing too much of the coordinated effort by our leadership, and that's what bothers me. That Michael Tepper has to spend his own money, to go and get the affidavits or to get whatever he needs to see what. I mean, it's ridiculous. Where's our community leadership in all this?
And the response was
I agree, but here's the issue. Here's the issue. Common sense. What should have been done after Mayor sent that first email, all we do is we do the exact same thing they did. We just make the bus ads,
Yeah, I
And
made
this
one
this
already.
is a smarter way. Look, this is why I get so annoyed sometimes with the way Jews tend to fight this stuff, because you guys do everything very verbose and very like, oh, let's do all this A to B to C.
No, no, we've
No, you
already
know
made
what? You
one. Put it
go
up,
make a
Dr.
bus
B.
ad yourself. No, just
Put it
listen
up,
to me.
Dr. B.
You make a bus ad exactly like their ad, only you put the Palestinian nonsense instead of talking about Israeli apartheid. We
Yeah.
can actually show that in the Arab world there is actually apartheid. Palestinians can't get citizenship in Lebanon. Palestinians can't get citizenship in Kuwait. They're literally living in those countries without actual citizenship. They're denied citizenship. Now, we could make ads about that. We could make ads about the child abuse. There's literal child abuse when Hamas is forcing children to dig tunnels. So instead of even bothering with all of this, hey guys, is it okay if we do a bus ad? Screw that. We'll submit the bus ads, and when they deny it, then you say, hey, wait a minute, is there a double standard here? Because this stuff was put up about Israel, and you guys told us no. As long as it's contextual, factual. So okay, so then
Exactly.
this is contextual and factual.
So Ryan,
So-
I spent the last 3-4 days doing a lot of research. The doctor can put up the ad I made. That ad is backed up with factual things. So if the
there we
doctor
go. We
wants
should
to put it up,
then we got to get that ad put up.
then
So
put it
that's
up, Dr. B, and then they can see it. And it's just I've taken what they did and I just flipped it around on them. And I've done research and I've got all the information to back it all up. The leadership of the Palestinian people encourages terrorism. And I can bolt Palestinian terrorism, and there you go. We can play the same game. I can do the scan back. I mean, I've done it all. It's all done.
I
It
would,
took me
Ron, I
3
would
hours.
change that slightly, though. I would change that slightly. Do you want to know why?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would get rid of, as say, American Jewish Committee. I would get rid of Israel Now. I would get rid of JC.ca, all that stuff. You know what you put on there? As according to the United States government.
Yeah.
Because the
No, that's
United
fine.
States government has called out the Palestinians for doing that. The United
But
States
this is-
government has determined that Hamas is a Palestinian terrorist organization. We don't even
Correct.
have to put Jewish organizations. The United States government has said this. So yeah, they
Yeah.
want to cry. Who has more credibility? No offense, but when we're talking about this, everyone says, "Oh, Jews are always talking about anti-Semitism." So guess what? We don't even have to put Jewish stuff on here. Just put United States government. And then when the idiots complain about it, you say, "Hey, don't get mad at us. Get mad at the United States government. They're the ones that said this."
Yeah, and it's factually correct, as say these people, So you can't tell me it's not factually correct. I used their own wording in the response to Mayor in order to create this ad. I very carefully watched what he said to Mayor and I said, okay, you know what? If that's what it is, then here's an ad we'd like to submit. Tell me this ad can't go on your buses. I want to know that this ad can't come around on your buses. Why? What's the difference?
100%.
And that's what I'm saying.
The other thing you could even do is put even more organizations on there, because it's not just Jewish organizations that have determined, as determined by the United Kingdom's government, as determined by the United States government, as determined by, just put every government that has acknowledged that the Palestinian terrorists exist.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
I don't know. It is crazy. And the thing is, I can already tell you what's going to happen. That what they'll probably do is they'll take down the bus ads for the idiots that made the apartheid ones. Then they'll take down, they'll tell you they can't run these ones, but they'll take the other ones down, even though they've already run for a little while. They'll take them down, and then they'll try to play the whole, this is just too controversial. They did the exact same thing a couple of years ago in Toronto.
And have you noticed that the bus ads ran about 3 or 4 days earlier than they were supposed to? They were supposed to start running on August 1st, and somebody allowed them to run earlier without being properly apparently vetted, because now they got to have some changes made to those ads. So again, somebody is sitting at that transportation company who's not a fan of Israel, who just made them go by, because he knew that this would happen. Perhaps he said, "Let's get them out there." And when they take them down, it's too late. They've already been running on the streets for 4 or 5 days. People have seen them everywhere. It's crazy. Mayor, one thing I wanted to mention, you were talking about the gas, natural gas that Israel is currently starting to get out of the Mediterranean through its own borders in the sea. And something that you and I talked about the other day was the fact that Lebanon is in desperate need of natural gas. And they signed a deal recently with Egypt and Syria to have Egyptian natural gas flowing through Syria to Lebanon. The only problem was that Egypt did not have enough natural gas to fulfill the commitment to send the gas to Lebanon. So guess which gas is going to Lebanon. The gas that's going, this is factual, you can check this out. The gas that's going to Lebanon is Israeli gas being pumped out of the sea on the Leviathan oil rig, which has been threatened by Hezbollah to be bombed. So, and Hezbollah is using that gas right now to power their, their computers and everything, so they can threaten Israel. It's just a bizarre world we live in. But there you go. Israel is supplying natural gas to Lebanon through Egypt and Syria. Who would have thought of that even 2 years ago? Incredible changes are happening in the Middle East.
It's unbelievable.
I'll be honest with you. I think it's a problem. I wouldn't sell them. I wouldn't sell them
Unbelievable.
let alone sell them natural gas. Let them freeze in the dark.
There's going to be a meeting. There's going to be a meeting apparently in the next few days between the Israeli government officials and the Lebanese government officials to finalize the signing of the agreement in regarding to the borderline for the water border between Israel and Lebanon. Again, an incredible.
None of that stuff matters though, Ron. As long as Hezbollah has the access to the weaponry that they have, as long as they have they can hide all throughout South Lebanon. I mean, literally, nobody believes that it was Israel versus Lebanon in the last war. Everyone knows that it was Israel versus Hezbollah. Most of Lebanon's tried to stay out of it. But I mean, the sad fact is, when you blow up Hezbollah's infrastructure, you're blowing up Lebanese infrastructure because Hezbollah is so deeply embedded in Lebanon.
Listen,
Lebanese. I don't think Israel should be. What Israel should be doing, maybe, is they should be telling the Lebanese government, "Hey, we'll help you get rid of those asshats. We'll help you root that out. We'll help you cut out the tumor, but we're not gonna give you guys natural gas as long as you have these idiots threatening us." Because I mean, all Hezbollah is a proxy of the Iranian government. I mean, we all know this now. They need to get rid of them.
It's to me these are all small steps in a much bigger chess game that's being played. The dependency that's going to happen on Israeli natural gas could cause, at some point, the Lebanese people themselves to start looking more closely at their relationship with Israel and with Hezbollah. Listen, it's a complicated world in the Middle East, but this is a huge, in my opinion, a huge change for the positive. One thing I wanted to mention before we go on here, just let me one thing. I don't know if you know that there's elections now happening in Winnipeg for city council. And we're dealing right now here in Winnipeg with a candidate that's come on to city council by the name of Omar Kinnereth, who we've been following for quite a while here in Winnipeg, who's anti-Semite amongst many other things. And we're working very diligently now. Again, it's not the official Jewish community because they don't even know what's going on, but it's those of us in the grassroots that are working very diligently to spread information about Omar. We've had some stories in the local media and such, but I'll give you just some of the things. And this is again to show you about the deeper issue of anti-Semitism within Canada. That somebody like him not only can run for city council, but garner support in the community. He's called the Jews white supremacists. He told us that we're supporters of mass murder. He's gone out to saying that we should throw the Jews in the well, just like Borat. He likes Hamas and their flags. He called Zionist ham and cheese eating Jews. And these are just, very few of the things that he's been saying and spreading over the last few years on social media. So it's incredible to me, that we're fighting all these issues all over. And again, he gets support from Independent Jewish Voices and other organizations who see him, as some kind of a candidate, that they can, look up to. And so between fighting the bus ads that apparently are going to make their way to Winnipeg at some point, and then having to deal with, issues such as city council, candidates for city council who are running, who are, very anti-Semitic, it's making, and seeing then, of course, the prime minister, hugging and kissing with BDS supporters, it makes you wonder, what direction are we going? And what is our community, larger community, doing about it? It's worrying times here, I have to tell you, Mayor. It's the first time in Winnipeg we're dealing with outright anti-Semitic candidate running for city council. Quite interesting.
Hey, let me butt in 1 second real quickly just to make a comment, because I think this is another thing regarding the bus ads. I just put this together, that these are people who say that Israel does not practice apartheid. And this is the German Foreign Ministry spokesperson. Actually, the Anti-Defamation League, which is progressive, says Israel is not apartheid. The head of the International Committee of the Red Cross says that we're not apartheid. We know Joseph Haddad, an Arab-Israeli war veteran. Even Abbas, the Ram Party leader, says that we're not apartheid, as does a UAE influencer, the South African politician Zulu tribal chief. And there's an article in the Wall Street Journal which basically says, documented, there's apartheid in the Holy Land, but it's not in Israel. I mean, that's what we need to put on that ad. I was putting that together while we were talking. I'm sorry for my low tech and my not working arm tonight. Back to you guys in the studio.
No, the
Very
Doc's
good.
right. Like, I mean, look, it's common sense. If you know what the definition of apartheid actually is, then you know that Israel doesn't conduct it. It's pretty simple. But the problem is, guys, like, and I'm going to be blunt, we've lost the fight over language because language no longer matters, which bothers me because I appreciate precision of language. So it irks me when I see these idiots talking about a genocide when their population has literally exploded to 6 times what it was. No genocide in the history of mankind has ever resulted in the increase of a population during the genocide supposedly happening. But they've convinced everybody that this is a horrible genocide. I mean, they've convinced people that it's ethnic cleansing when it's literally Jews who have been ethnically cleansed from Judea and Samaria. Like, any Arab-controlled area is completely Jew-free. Completely. Whereas in Israel, 18% of the population is non-Jewish. So you tell me who's conducted ethnic cleansing. I mean, especially when you look at the fact that Judea and Samaria is the Jewish ancestral homeland. So if there's no Jews in the Jewish ancestral homeland, why would that be? It's not like they left. They didn't leave by choice. So that's why you have to start asking these questions. Like, we have to start saying, this is just stupid. Like, we have to demand precision of language. I mean, we live in a world already where, we're told that women can have penises and men can give birth. I mean, this is the world we live in now. We know that language doesn't mean what it used to mean. So we have to be very precise in our language, I believe, and we have to start demanding precision and accountability.
I believe, I believe that, that's part of the difference between us and them. Go ahead, Mayor. Go ahead, Mayor.
There was a very interesting video that came out over the weekend of Condoleezza Rice, who served in the Bush administration. Look at the Aspen Foundation, and in her talk, she said about the Abraham Accords and peace happening in the Middle East between Israel and Arab and Islamic countries, and she said the Islamic countries and the Arab countries are now waking up to a reality that there is an 800-ton gorilla in the Middle East that is on the top of cutting edge of technology, all the technologies, and these Arab and Islamic countries are waking up and knowing that not because they like Israel, for their own self-interest, they have to deal with Israel. They have to make these deals with Israel, and that's another crushing blow to the BDS. And more than that, also, that Europe is sending warships and the gas rigs, the Israeli gas rigs against the law. I think we're going to start seeing in Europe, once the gas eventually flows to Europe, and we're keeping European homes warm during the winter, Israel is keeping them warm during the winter, that they will start taking measures never even imagined against BDS in Europe. That's my prediction. We could.
Oh, you're 100% right. But
we'll come back to that.
BDS has been an absolutely abject failure. Like the only thing that they've ever achieved is that they've helped mainstream a lot of anti-Semitism. So I guess in that way it was successful. But in its actual goal, which was to delegitimize Israel and actually harm the Israeli economy has grown by leaps and bounds during the time when BDS was supposedly harming it. Like, it's incredible how much Israel's economy has grown. And meanwhile, the people that are supporting BDS in the Arab world, they're not doing so well. So
I think BDS has shifted from trying to really impact Israel to trying and really impact the Jewish communities in diaspora. You're looking more and more at the kind of actions that the BDS is taking. It's less and less about Israel, and it's more and more about the local Jewish community, local Israeli community, whether it's the mapping projects, whether it's showing up at Jewish-run plazas, malls, and harassing Jews. The whole way that the BDS movement has gone, and it's coming from the frustration that Ryan is mentioning. It's turned, to let's see what we can do and how we can attack the Jewish community within diaspora. Look at Canadian Defenders for Human Rights, for example, and who they attack. They attack the Zionist Canadians, the Canadian lobby, the Canadian. It's not about Israel anymore. It's about the local community here in the local Jewish community. And I agree with Ryan that what they've done is really mainstreamed anti-Semitism under a new definition of anti-Zionism. Just like the Germans, took, and made anti-Semitism, become a word that people could kind of swallow. Now it's just changed to anti-Zionism, and it's changed to the BDS, running this anti-Semitism. I have to tell you, I've been doing this now, Mayor, for I don't know how many years, probably 20, 30 plus years. And the amount of times that I had to encounter white supremacists who are, anti-Zionists or Jew haters, as compared to the amount of time I've had to deal with the BDS, pro-Palestinian, Jew-hating anti-Semites, you can't even compare the numbers. So for all those
let me just say,
people,
real quickly, just because if anybody's watching on their cell phone or a small PC who didn't follow Mayor's recent comment, I think this is crucial, the changes in the Middle East after the Abraham Accords. So I'm going to read it in case if anybody's on a small device. This is Condoleezza Rice, a quote. Think about Israel and the Gulf states and what is developing there. She said this during a panel at the Aspen Security Forum alongside national security advisors. Think about the fact that you could actually be at a place where the Arabs end the state of war against Israel, really end it. And why? Not because they've learned to love the Jewish democratic state of Israel, but because the smarter of them have realized that in order to modernize their own economies and not be completely dependent upon oil, that they're going to have to deal with the 800-pound gorilla and the technology in the region, and that's Israel. I mean, if that doesn't summarize the aftermath of the Abraham Accords, then nothing does.
Yeah. I think the other thing, too, I noticed one of the comments here, somebody said we haven't mentioned the Canadian progressive Jewish groups. And I think the reason that we didn't bother mentioning them is because let's be 100% honest. Most of these groups that call themselves Jewish, as soon as they say the word progressive, you already know that whatever they say is not going to be very Jewish, right? So these groups that claim to be progressive Jews, very rarely are they actually Jews. I attended one of those meetings with a lady named Valerie Sobel and another friend of mine, and they had my iPad, and they actually filmed themselves asking questions of the four people that were there. Now, this is supposed to be independent Jewish voices, which is, they call themselves a progressive Jewish organization. Now, Valerie asked one of them point blank, "Are you Jewish?" And she said, "No." And then Valerie said, "But I thought this was an event by independent Jewish voices." And she said, "Oh, you don't have to be Jewish to be in our group. Most of the people in Calgary aren't even Jewish." And she actually got that on tape. Like, these people aren't hiding it. They're not actually Jews. Even the ones that are nominally Jewish are perfectly content to be tokens for the Jew haters to hide behind. Like, for whatever reason, maybe they think that they'll get killed last, but I just don't understand them. They're very, very odd people. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating to watch because they're, like, let's be 100% honest
absolutely.
here. These people, if they're Jewish, they're Jewish, right?
I mean, again, and that's the other problem, right? They're hijacking, what is or isn't considered to be a Jewish identity. And again, that's because they're out there all the time trying to push their agenda into the general public. Again, well, we, as the larger Jewish community and the Jewish leadership, we don't do that as well. And that's why, whenever you see anything in the news, they would have, let's say, somebody from B'nai B'rith, and then the person who's going to respond on the other side will be independent Jewish voices. So you always see, I don't know what, UJA, and then somebody from independent Jewish voices. So it appears to the general public that there must be a large people on the independent Jewish voices because they're the big counter to everything else that the official Jewish leadership says, and it gives the impression of that's what they are. But in reality, you know, there are a handful of people. There's 1,000 members across Canada. Don't call me wrong, you know, but yet they act much bigger than who they are, and we allow them to act much bigger than who they are, and we are part of the problem that allows them to be this apparent 800-pound gorilla, which they're not even 500-gram mouse. You know what I mean? That's
no, and you know, somebody else just mentioned J
Right.
Space.
J
Like
Space,
that's
yeah,
the
same thing.
J Street of Canada,
Oh,
right? Like
J
Yeah, same
that's
thing.
you know, the sad thing is that that's run by a woman that used to work for B'nai B'rith.
Yeah,
Like that tells you all of these people that are
Right.
on the left side. Lots of them used to work for CJA. Lots of them used to work for B'nai B'rith. Like these people,
Bernie
they claim
Farber.
to be representative. Yeah, Bernie Farber. There you go. I mean, this is a guy that was the president of one of the Jewish congresses. I mean, these are people who are claiming to speak on behalf of the Jewish community while literally shitting on the Jewish community. Like, you can't have that. And the problem is that, you know, like this podcast, we call them out. Lots of my friends that do advocacy, they call them out. But the truth of the matter is, the National Post still quotes Bernie Farber,
Yeah,
right? Because they didn't get the memo that
Right.
that guy doesn't. Not only does he not represent the Jewish community, but I would say most of the Jewish community actively despises the guy. I saw him at the Walk for Israel a couple of years ago, and he was walking around trying to shake hands, and people were literally looking at him and like giving him the eye roll and walking away. So that tells me that he's not super popular in the Jewish community. But for some reason, some of these people
Right.
think, you know, oh well, this is a guy that we should talk to. It's really unfortunate.
it's because I don't think they care about, you know, really the
No,
Jewish
100%.
community. Again, it's Bernie Farber for them, you know, as a representation of something, just like independent Jewish voices. You know, because everybody's so afraid to, God forbid, say that Israel is right on any issue, that you always have to give a counterbalance. You never see that though when they write articles that are pro-Palestinian in nature. You don't see them going after, you know, comments or whatever from pro-Israel organizations. But whenever there's anything that in any way is going to make Israel look positive within the news, we got to make sure we find somebody on the other side to say something negative about it, or to counter it, or to give a different opinion on it. And that's part of the fear that people have out there, because nowadays to be associated with Israel is almost seen as this terrible negative thing, you know, like if you're a Zionist, you're somehow this, and it's I blame us for that. I blame us. I don't blame the greater community. I blame our community for allowing that to happen, for falling asleep at the wheel and waking up too late. You know, we're in the ditch trying to control, you know, the semi-rig, you know, and the rig is going out of control. You know, wake up.
Yeah. Hey, I saw a question there. They asked how the Taste of Israel is doing. My friend Michael goes there every single Friday since I've known him now for 5 years. Every Friday he does almost all of his Shabbat shopping there. So everybody should go there and buy one or two small things every Friday right before Shabbat. I mean, go to My Zadie's Bakery, pick something up. Go to Stu's and get some fruit.
Sure.
Go to Taste of Israel. It's funny because my buddy goes to each of those little places in the plaza and tries to support everybody. And I think that's the best way that the Jewish community can kind of thumb their nose at these idiots. Because
100%.
look what happened. I mean, the guy goes and threatens people shopping for Shabbat, and we're supposed to believe he doesn't hate Jews. He just hates Israel. So he goes to a place that has Israel in the name because he's so butthurt about a store being called Taste of Israel. Meanwhile, you know, like people are just going there and buying cholent stuff. Like my buddy goes there and he buys the kishka that he makes for the cholent, right? I mean, it's insane.
You know,
but go there and buy
100%.
stuff. Go there every Friday. Go there every day if you can. Hell, I would.
I agree. I think that's the best way that we can counter this.
Listen, so we mentioned Lebanon during our program, and the latest from Lebanon right now is that in Beirut, there are grain silos. There was a massive fire that happened, and the grains collapsed today. Saw the video.
Yeah.
And
must be a Zionist conspiracy.
Who do they want? Who does Lebanon want? They want to put their trust and faith behind Islam, or they're already getting gas now from Israel indirectly. It's Israel gas. They're getting it.
Look, the truth of the matter is, who do you want to help you? The terrorists or the guys that do good shit?
Exactly. Do you want the country to prosper? The country to be a beautiful country. It could be a beautiful country make peace.
Absolutely.
Let's move on. Let's dismantle Hezbollah, get the BDS completely out of the way, and move on. And everybody lives well.
My best friend,
That's really
like literally my best friend that I've been friends with for over 15, 20 years now, he's Lebanese. They're Lebanese Christians, right? And his parents showed me pictures of Lebanon before they left Lebanon, like what it looked like. They used to call Beirut the Paris of the Middle East.
Oh, it was
I mean,
beautiful.
That's right.
yeah, the beaches there are gorgeous.
Beautiful.
The landscape is stunning. And yet Lebanon in the modern day is war torn, and it's very, most of the places are beat right to hell. And people wonder why other people that might be in Lebanon are looking around, and now they're looking and they're seeing Israel on TV, because we got to remember too, guys, this is the age of information. So anybody in Lebanon could go online and see these videos of people partying in Tel Aviv, people hanging out at the beach, and they have to be asking themselves, why can't we have that? How come we live in this nonsense garbage shithole, and Israel, which is right next door, has all these wonderful things happening? Like, why is it that Lebanese cuisine Lebanon used to be known for fruits and vegetables, and like it was kind of like the place to go to get all that stuff, and now Israel's taken that reputation, right? So we need to just start focusing on that stuff,
right.
showing
Listen,
people, hey, you know what? Better
prior,
life.
Prior to 1948, my wife's grandfather used to work on the railroad that went from Cairo all the way to Beirut. And he would go on the train. You could go on the train all the way from Cairo to Beirut, even as Jews, and you could go and do your shopping and do your holidays and do your vacations. And he would tell them stories about how great it was, and how great the relationship was there. And then came, the inevitable, 1948. The Arabs thought that they could beat the Jews, and the rest is so-called history. But there was once upon a time a very prosperous relationship between all the countries in the Middle East. And we're hoping that one day that will return, and it will return again, because Israel is a strong country. And just like Menachem Begin said, today I don't come to you as a Jew with quivering knees. I come to you as a Jew who's strong, and a Jew who stands, firm, who's got his own country. And I think Menachem Begin was right. He said that's the only way that we're going to, even Kahana, on the same level, that's the only way. I mean, that's what these people understand is strength. And when Israel is strong, when Israel is prosperous, when Israel does well, their neighbors pay attention, and the neighbors are paying attention.
I had when I was in Israel, I went to Hebron, right? And everybody was like, "Oh, Ryan, you can't go to Hebron. There's crazy Arabs there. They're all crazy and they're violent." And I went and had dinner there with a sheikh.
Yeah.
And I can still remember, this is my very first trip to Israel. I went there. Stand With Us actually brought me, the group Stand With Us.
Hey, Trace.
And they had the most incredible...
Turn the air conditioner on the fan. I'm sweating over here.
They had the most incredible trip planned out for me. So I'm sitting in this room with a sheikh. Like, he's full on. Like, he's got the, the cool looking headgear and everything. Doesn't speak hardly any English, and his son is standing there. And the sheikh actually said to me, like, my friend kept saying, "Ryan, you can't say that to him. You'll offend him and make him angry." And because they were talking about how the Jews came and took everything. And I said, well, you understand that, because the Jews were here first. So, like, to me as a native Canadian, I'm looking at them, and I'm seeing the native people telling their colonizer, no, you don't get to tell me what to do anymore. You used to be the boss, but you're not the boss anymore. I'm strong enough now that I've taken back my self-determination. You don't get to tell me what to do. And the funny part was, the old Arab guy smiled, and he said, yes, but when we were more powerful, we made them do what we wanted.
Correct.
And the funny part was, but he acknowledged the fact. Like, he wasn't like the young people that'll be like, no, it's the Arabs have lived here for 1,000,000 years. He came right out and said their last name was Al-Mazri. Now, anybody who speaks Egyptian. Arabic knows that means the Egyptian, right? So like when you talk to these people, the older people, I think in general, we can work with them. Right? Like, and I think that's how the Abraham Accords are working. They're appealing to people who want to make money, who want to have a better life, who want to actually live a decent life, and are tired of the nonsense. They're tired of the constant fighting. Like, and the funny part is, I think most Israelis are tired of the fighting, and they would give up a lot for peace. But now they might not have to. Now I think what's happening is the rest of the world is catching up and realizing, okay, you know what? We could all be prosperous if we quit fighting over stupid shit. And that's the sad part, because the Israelis aren't fighting over stupid shit. The Israelis are fighting for their lives. That's what a lot of people don't understand, is that it's Arabs that get on the bus to blow up the bus. It's not Jews getting on the bus.
I'll tell you something, Ryan. It's like, somebody told a lie to somebody and said, hey, so-and-so stole from you. And then for the next 40 years, you don't talk to that person because somebody else told you they stole from you. And then one day you find out that that's not the true story and they never really stole from you. But for 40 years, you're allowed to yourself to destroy your relationship, your life. It's the same story in the Middle East. A fake story about stealing land was created in 1964. And then that fake narrative, allowed these countries to really suffer, because their hate for Israel caused them to also, in many ways, be a pariah in the greater global world. And their focus and their fascination with the hate towards Israel didn't allow them to grow their countries. Now, mind you, they're all, countries of dictatorships. So it was important to have an outside enemy in order to oppress their own people. But as the Arab world is opening because of technology, like Ryan said, and when you look at the reforms in Saudi Arabia, when you look at women going to work there, when you look at the women DJs there and the parties that reform, that openness forces them to also open up to the whole region and to Israel and to it's fantastic. In my opinion, what's happening in the Middle East right now is something I never thought would happen in my lifetime. And I think, we'll see Lebanon also, in the next 5-10 years, I hope so, coming, more into the direction of Israel when they recognize that they're sitting there as a pariah, with Syria and Iran. And I think that's what Israel's trying to do. Find the weakness.
Also, 10 years ago, we're talking about that. People forget that there was a time in the 1930s where Baghdad was 30% Jewish, and it was where people went for vacations to the restaurants, to the clubs. I mean, that was, when our parents were alive and well and adults. We're not talking about 1,000 years ago. We're talking about, right before we were born. So
if you look like what I was saying, Doc, is like 10 years ago, people laughed at me because I said the age of information is going to change everything. And the simple truth is that most of these Arab nations, they relied on the ignorant fellahin.
Yeah.
They relied on the peasants to be stupid and illiterate and not know what was going on around them. Yep. Because then if you say, hey, the Zionists are here and you're a dictator and you're oppressing the hell out of these people, whenever they started to get upset and rise up, they would say, oh, no, but what about the Zionists? And everybody would get their pitchfork and be like, kill the Zionists. But now we have Facebook. Yep. We have Instagram. People are seeing the truth, because you can only tell someone that their eyes are lying so often before they start thinking, okay, but I'm seeing this with my own two eyes, right?
Yeah.
And now when you see all of these Arab, and it's funny because we had a guest on here a couple months ago, and he argued with me about it. And I said, look, dude, there are actual Saudi Arabians who are going to Israel now. And when they're in Israel, they're actually saying, okay, wait a second. I thought that by coming here as a Saudi Arabian, they were going to be mean to me. They were going to hate me. They were going to call me names. Instead, I was welcomed with open arms. They showed me the mosques. They took me on tours. This kind of stuff is super important because this changes the paradigm. Because now it's not all the Arabs hate the Jews. Now you're starting to see some of the, and look, let's be honest, a lot of it's because they're afraid of Iran. And you know what? Having a really dangerous enemy sometimes makes the enemy of my enemy my friend.
Yeah.
But, we also have to realize this is really changing. Mayor brings this guy up a lot. Yosef Haddad, Arab Israeli, served in the army, veteran, served with distinction. Yahya Mohammed, another young Arab guy, served in the IDF. He's going around touring now, telling people the truth about Israel. This is how things change. Social media gets more views and more engagement than traditional legacy media ever will. So all of this idiocy lying in the mainstream media, yes, it still has an impact, but even just this show, I guarantee you this show will probably get shared maybe only 50, 60 times. But out of those 50, 60 shares, if that's 10 or 20 people watching each share, all of a sudden you have the same engagement as a legacy TV show. And that's why we got to try harder to get more people to watch this.
Exactly. Yep.
But anyway, I got to get going, fellas. I'm really sorry, but it's a Sunday.
Hey, Ryan, right before you leave, I want to do a quick important, and this is, you never know when I'm telling the truth. This is not funny. Something happened in Texas last week that I really want to share with our audience. And I'm going to keep you guys on the screen because I think you'll be shocked by this development. But this is a quick little report. And if the internet stops working, I'll just shut it on down. But so far, we're doing good. So this is a special report, from Texas, which is where I am right now. I'm a couple of hours from Houston. I'm up from the Gulf of Mexico a little ways. And, we like to think of Texas as, people don't realize how many Jews are in Texas. We're the other Lone Star State. We had the Alamo, Israel had Masada, and, there are a lot of early Texans here. So back in Houston, that's downtown Houston. That's the medical center. It's the largest cancer center and the largest collection of children's hospitals and medical care facilities in the world is in Houston, Texas. That's our airport, our international airport. That's our ship channel. So you can see, number one, how accessible we are to good things. Also, how vulnerable we are to bad things. I mean, they talk about the border between Israel and everywhere else. I mean, we're still fighting to get a border between Texas and south of us. And it's not just undocumented aliens we're worried about from Mexico. They're coming in from all over the world. So what happened is just mind-boggling.
Okay.
These are the largest Jewish populations in America. New York is number 1, Los Angeles number 2, Chicago is number 3, Dallas is number 4, and Houston is number 5. I mean, people would have thought, Miami, but it's not. Houston and Dallas together have almost 200,000 Jews. And the institutions of Jewish learning, of Jewish education, of the Chabad houses, every star on every flag here is a Jewish institution within city limits. These are just a short list. The Jewish Federation, Jewish Center, Jewish Family Services. Again, people think we're this little, hick town without Jews, and Jews have been here since the 1600s. So I'm being asked to get to the point, and since the internet's working so well, I hate to rush it, but at the request, here is the point. Iran's state-run Fars news agency, affiliated with the Iranian Revolution National Guard, have published a video of children in Houston, Texas, swearing allegiance to the regime's supreme leader of Iran. Wow. And this is in Houston, Texas. Okay, this is last week. So I went to Google Earth, to Google Maps. I really wanted to see exactly where this address was. And, we think it's some secret little place, some little farming community. So here's a little aerial photograph. That big building is the Alavi Foundation, which owns dozens of properties across the U.S., including a 36-story office building in Manhattan and this 100,000 square foot building in Houston, Texas. And this is like out of a Bruce Willis movie. So there's that center. Let me get it, see if I could highlight it for you there.
While you're doing that, I'll tell you the same thing happened in Mississauga.
This is Islamic Education Center. Okay, that's Islamic Education Center. This is, believe it or not, this is the Immigration Center. Okay, this is a self-storage facility where you can hide things because you have a key, you go in at night, you put what you want. So this is your center. That's a storage facility. This is all, and you see what's around it is parking lots. That is an apartment complex also owned by this Islamic corporation from Iran. This is the facility they're talking about. Okay? Wow. In the middle of Houston, surrounded by parking lots, a storage facility, an immigration center, and an apartment complex. So without any further ado, this is made in Houston, Texas. And these are not Iranian children. These are citizens of America whose parents live and work in Houston, Texas.
I will be your soulmate. I'll be your supporter. Be your biggest lover. I promise to make them like Maggie. In spite of my own age, I will be yours. He's coming
I mean, this must be against some American law to swear allegiance to a foreign country who's trying to get nukes and destroy America and Israel. This is in Houston, Texas.
Don't look at my
He's going to translate it into English in a few moments.
Salam
one day when you need me, do not mind my age. I will be a martyr for you.
I make a note to be your Shaheed Hadi. I make a note, just like Bahjat, just like your loyal sergeants.
Just like your loyal sergeants, regardless of my age, I will be a shaheed for you.
I'll be your servant. I make an oath that I will stay loyal to you, oh Imam. Your soldiers are here without fear.
So, I mean, if that looked like hundreds of children, not 10 or 20. So if 2 of them decide that what they need to do is strap a bomb to themselves to make their family happy, they're American citizens living in Houston and they're 10 years old. Wait till they're 20 years old. And somehow the American government has been unable to take that down, and they're very aware of it. So back to you.
Don't be so shocked. I've seen very similar videos coming out of Mississauga, Ontario, very similar oaths being made by young Muslim children in Canada to the supreme leader of Iran. So people should not be shocked that this is happening. The shock is that you're just finding out about it. This has been happening for years and years and years. It's nothing new. This is part of the agenda. You come into a Western democratic country, and then you use all the laws that are there in a democracy against the democracy in order to bring your own, authoritarian kind of rule that you wish to have in that country. And who can tell them that they can't do that? Who can tell them that they can't have their kids, swear allegiance to Khomeini? What does that mean? I mean, that's the problem, that it shouldn't happen, but there's no laws forbidding it from happening. So it's disturbing. Yeah, Jennifer, North Mississauga, I can show you videos of exactly the same thing. You'd be shocked.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit different since it's a Iranian government sponsored, completely sanctioned by the openly.
Same in Mississauga.
Iranian government.
Same in Mississauga.
I know.
If you're thinking that Mississauga is not, come on. Let's be serious here. Let's not.
But again, not being as familiar with politics there, Texas is one of the few remaining red states. I mean, we have a lot of Zionists, a lot of Jews. We also have a lot of nutcase right wings. We have neo-Nazis. We have Ku Klux Klan. So how has that managed to survive without some psycho on the other side? And I live here. I drive by there. I know where that is. I can't believe that isn't stopped by the government to prevent some non-government militia from getting rid of it. And again, that same company owns a 36th floor apartment.
But Dr. B, now imagine they do this in Houston, they do this in Dallas, they do this in Chicago, they do this in LA, they do this in Miami, they do this all over. They do it in Michigan. They do it everywhere. What you're seeing is just like the tip of the iceberg. These kind of events, this kind of pro-Iranian events are being held across the United States and across Canada as well. It's shocking, it's disturbing, but it's part of the problem of this global world we live in, where anybody can go live anywhere they want, immigration everywhere, no vetting, the good from the bad. This is what you end up with. You end up with this kind of a problem. My father, who, may he rest in peace, said, we're heading into a third world war, but that world war is not going to be between armies. It's going to be between neighbors. And this is an exact point of what you're showing there. This is, in your own neighborhood. These are people one day want to raise up against you in your own neighborhood. The same people who come to you for services, as a doctor, for surgeries, for help, for assistance, one day will have no problem turning on you when the Supreme Leader Khomeini says, now it's time for this, great war, so to be.
But when I did the aerial map, to me it looked like a scene out of a Bruce Willis movie. You've got the immigration
It's frightening.
center, you've got
Frightening.
storage facilities, you've got an apartment complex with a swimming pool, you've got
They've got it figured out.
That's 100,000 square foot building, and
They have it figured out.
yeah, it's
They have
just
it.
frightening.
Listen, Canadian Defenders for Human Rights was getting $17,000 anonymous donations before the donation was shut down because Mayor and me, fought so hard to get that, but they were getting 10,000, 17,000, 5,000, 12,000 anonymous donations. Where do you think those donations are coming from? What do you think that money is sent for? They sent for so that idiot can climb up a ladder, and then harass Jews. It's sent so they can pay for the gas for their cars. It's sent so they can continue doing what they're doing to disturb the Jewish community. Same as what's happening in Texas. That's just money laundering by the Iranians, in many ways, right? Send all that money, build that infrastructure all in one place. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. The community as a whole is not interested. They don't understand the language. They don't understand the culture. They don't understand the religion. They understand nothing about these people. So they don't want to, they leave it alone until one day a building
Those are little miniature sleeper cells. Those are sleeper cells being born and bred. And again, that looks like 1,000 children to me.
But then in one day, when a building explodes in Dallas or Houston or whatever, and people go, "Oh my God, what happened?" And then they find out there was a cell that was there for 20 years. We didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't care.
Right.
That's why you didn't know, because you didn't care.
And that's where we come in. Hey, we've been on for a long time, Mayor. We were talking about showing the Hamas summer camps. Maybe we'll save that for next week to discuss. But remember, once again, now that COVID is kind of in the past, Hamas right now is carrying on summer camps to train terrorists to kill Jews. That's what they're doing. Where all kids are learning to swim and play baseball, they're learning how to plant bombs and kill Jews. And people accuse us Zionists of being paranoid. It's absurd.
It's crazy. That's the world we live in. It's a crazy world. On one side, there's Palestinian children right now being helped in Israeli hospitals, saving their lives through, cutting edge heart surgeries and other surgeries. And then on the other side of the border, those same families of those children being saved by Israeli doctors are planning the next, bombing or the next, attack on Israel. It's just a bizarre.
Interesting. Very quick little 15 seconds. I take care of trauma patients. I once had a burn patient come in, open his radiator, burned his whole side of his body. I cut off his shirt. He had white power and a swastika tattoo. I had no choice. I had to treat this guy, but I'm thinking, really? And it doesn't bother him. So I made sure, no joke, my Star David was dangling. I'm looking at this guy. He's an American Texan who has a swastika on his arm, and I'm taking care of his burn wounds. Yeah. I'm thinking, something's wrong with this picture.
And when he's better, he would have no problem taking you out and, getting rid of you, right? Yeah. So that's the bizarre world that we live in.
Scary.
All right, let's finish up, guys. It's already late. Okay,
Ron, since you're on the screen, you can give your closing comments. Then we'll have Mayor, and then I'll play Hatikva.
At times I find that
Absolutely.
we're kind of like, an old record that repeats itself again and again. We're talking about the same issues, but you know what? Sometimes to knock a door down, you got to hit it, a dozen times to get it to knock down. So we got to keep on knocking on the door, keep on knocking those doors down. We got to do it. Nobody else is going to do it. And that's what we do every single day. Even when we're not on the show, people don't understand the amount of work that goes behind the scenes between Mayor and the doctor and Ryan and myself and many others who are, continuously battling this growing fate of anti-Semitism in our country. And we'll continue fighting it. And we're asking all of you who are watching the show, to join us in this fight. To write those letters, to send those messages, to make those phone calls, to donate to israelnow.ca so we can put up those bus ads on those buses. These things don't happen without people supporting us. And if you can't support us, by being out there in the streets, support us financially. Help us do the work that we're doing. We're doing this work without any pay, without any kind of income, and we're doing it because we believe strongly in what we're doing. So we need your support so we can do those kind of campaigns that we want to do, to ensure that our message is sent out to the larger community. And together, we'll be successful. And just like Israel is being successful with the Abraham Accords and changing the way that the Middle East is looking, if we continue doing what we're doing, we'll change the way that our countries are looking, and our country is becoming more pro-Israel and pro-Zionist and pro-Jewish community, which is what we've always been as a Christo-Jewish communities in North America and Europe. That's all I got to say. And as always, Am Yisrael Chai.
I wonder what we can do to start a fundraiser to pay for those signs on buses and put together a graphic. So while we're three together, anybody who's listening, if you have suggestions, go to our website, israelnow.ca, send suggestions or send a donation and earmark it. Say these are for bus signs. And
Yeah.
I don't know what the fee is, but maybe you guys could find out what it would actually cost. And it's going to be hard for them to deny it when they've allowed the ones that are running now.
We'll find
If
out.
we document the list I gave. So, guys, I'll let Mayor have the final word before I go and play Hatikva.
Certainly. Well, before we commemorate Tisha B'Av. And in these 9 days, we have to intensify our efforts. We have to have laser vision and intensity and work harder for what we've been past since the show has been on the air. We have a lot more work to do. So we need you to help so we could run those bus ads. That's one thing. We also, too, have to work on a campaign to have the Palestinian Authority ambassador to Canada and what she has, horrible stuff. Got to be expelled from Canada. We have a lot of work to do, a lot of campaigns on, and we appreciate everyone who listens and shares our show. Whether you go to our website or our Facebook page, watch it in a few hours tomorrow, the next day, and then start sharing it. We appreciate that. We want to reach a lot more people. We have a lot of work to do. Let's give Israel now your key.
נפש יהודי הומייה ולפתן מזרח קדימה עין לציון צופיה עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון מירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel